So, good day everyone. So, we are assigned to talk about the arthropods and echinoderms. So, by the way, we are the group 4. So, Lahola, Ledesma, Luod, and Manguray. So, the first person who will discuss about this topic is Miss Luod.
Arthropods are the invertebrate animals having an exoskeleton, a segment body, and a paired joint appendages. Arthropods from the phylum Arthropoda, they are distinguished by their jointed limbs and cattle made of chitin, often mineralized with calcium carbonate. Examples of these is spiders, scorpions, crustaceans, millipedes, insects, and some others is in the rich fossils record the very late Precambrian period. This is the common six characteristic of phylum Arthropoda. First, the exoskeleton is the supporting structure on the outside of the body in arthropods. Second, the segmentation and appendages for more efficient locomotion. Number three, the jointed appendages such as mouth part and antennae. Number four, the biliary symmetry aligned in a cut made from head to tip at abdomen would be equal as viewed externally. Number five, the complex behavior patterns. Number six, limiting intraspecific, intras, intraspecific competition through metaphorsis. The subphylum Trilobita. The Trilobita are often placed within the arthropods subphylum Saxoburnia within the superdas Acronomorpha to the Acranata, although several alternative taxonomies are found in the literature. The subphylum Silicerate arthropods are an ancient group that includes Erythrophids or insect, horseshoe crabs, spiders, ticks, mites, and scorpions, and sea spiders. And the next reporter is Lahola.
So, next slide, please. So, makita ko. So, class Merostomata. So, under class Merostomata, there are two subclass under class Merostomata. First is, but before that, class Merostomata is under subphylum Chelecerata. So, class Merostomata is represented by Eurypterids, all now extinct, meaning they are no longer existing in this world, and Siphosaurids or horseshoe crabs, an ancient group sometimes called living fossils. So, just a facts and trivia of class Merostomata. Did you know, guys, that the way of eating of these living things are amazing because they have no mandibles. Mandible meaning they have no jawbone like mammals and other fishes, or they have no teeth. So they only crush hard food between their legs before passing it to their mouth. So subclass Eurypterida. Euryptid or giant scorpions. Balik sa last slide, Faith. So subclass Eurypterida were the largest of all fossil arthropods, some reaching a length of 3 meters. Their fossils occur in rocks from the Ordovician to the Permian periods. They had many resemblances to marine horseshoes, crabs, and scorpions since they are both under subphylum Chelecerata. Another subclass is Siphosaurida. So, by the way, on Eurypterida or giant water scorpion structure is their head has 6 fused segments, as you can see, and bore both simple and compound eyes, and 6 pairs of appendages or the legs. Their abdomen have 12 segments and a spike-like telson. Next is the next slide, please. So the class Nycnogonida. Some sea spiders are only a few millimeters long, but others are much larger. They have small, thin bodies and usually 4 pairs of long, thin walking legs. In addition, they have a feature unique among arthropods, sometimes are duplicated in some groups so that they possesses they possesses they have small thin bodies walking legs in addition. They have a feature unique among arthropods, sometimes are duplicated in some groups so that they possesses or 6 pairs of legs instead of the 4 pairs normally characteristics of arachnids. So they are also called the secnonoid or cycnonid. Any of the spider-like marine animals comprising the class Nycnogonida, also called the Phantopoda of the phylum Arthropoda. So sexes are separate and fertilization is apparently external. The males carry the eggs on a special pair of legs until they hatch, meaning the male are assigned, or they are the one to carry the egg until it will hatch. Nervous and circulatory systems are simple, and there are apparently no respiratory or excretory system in this class. Next slide, please. The class Arachnida. Class Arachnida is a class of joint-leg invertebrate animals in the subphylum Chelecerate. So under the class Arachnida, under this class, it has 4 different orders. So first is order Arachnae, spiders. All spiders are predaceous, feeding largely on insects. They effectively dispatch their prey with their fangs and poison. Second order is order Scorpionida. Scorpions are generally secretive, hiding a burrows or other objects by day and feeding at night. They feed largely on insects and spiders, which they siege their pedipalps and tear up with their chelicerae. The third order is order Opelunus, harvestmen. Harvestmen, often known as daddy long legs, are common in the United States and other parts of the world. The last order is order Acari, ticks and mites. Members of order Acari are without the doubt most medically and economically important around Arachnida. So next slide, please. So these are the example of class Arachnida. The order Arachnae, spiders. So this is the example image of spiders. So we are all familiar about spiders. And second is Scorpionida, scorpions. Order Opelunus or harvestmen. Lastly is the order Acari, the ticks and mites. So the ticks and mites we are very familiar about this since it is common on dogs and cats. So next reporter, please.
Next will be the echinoderms or the phylum Echinodermata. Next slide, please. Next slide. Phylum Echinodermata share common. Ay, pakibalik sa ako. Share common features with chordates. Radial cleavage, it means it is the characteristic of deuterostomes, which means the second mouse. And Libby Hyman, an American zoologist, described echinoderms as a noble group specially designed to puzzle the zoologist, and it develops or the development of true coelom. It is usually slow moving or sessile, usually are radially symmetrical. Body parts are usually radiate from center. It possesses a thick calcium plate in the skeleton surrounded by a thick skin layer. Then it is characterized by a heart in the skeleton. Under their spiny skin is a layer of bony platelets called ossicle. These ossicles are held together by small muscles which contract and extend to move the arms of the animal. This endoskeleton provides support and protection to echinoderms. And it possesses a water vascular system which contain throughout the animal and extend into extension called tube feet. Echinoderms have water throughout their bodies that they use for everything from movement to gas exchange. Water enters the water vascular system through the sieve plate or the madreporite. From this opening, the water travels down the stone canal to a central ring called and down to the arms in radial canals. From the radial canals, water can enter the ampullae, which are bulbs that can push water into the tube feet. This causes the tube feet to extend or contract, and muscles in the tube feet can direct their movement. The tube feet can move the animals, grab objects and surfaces, and sense the environment. Its function is for locomotion, feeding, and gas exchange. The reproduce it reproduces sexually or through regeneration. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Paki-next ko sa slide. Class Asteroidea is under the phylum Echinodermata. It includes the sea stars, or it is often called as starfishes. These demonstrate the basic feature of echinoderm structure and function very well, and they are easily obtainable. Sea stars are familiar along the shoreline where large number may aggregate on rocks. They also live on muddy or sandy bottom among the coral reefs. They are often brightly colored and range in size from centimeter into greatest diameter to about a meter across. Usually they have five arms, or they can multiple for more than 5 arms. 2 feet located underneath each arm used for locomotion and grasping prey operate by hydraulic principles. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The anatomy of sea star. Echinoderms or the sea stars have a Sea stars are composed of a central disc that emerges gradually with the tapering arms or rays. The body is somewhat flattened, flexible, and covered with ciliated pigmented epidermis. The mouth is centered on the under or oral side, surrounded by a soft peristomial membrane. Sea stars typically have 5 arms, but may have more than, and there are as many ambulacral areas as they are. An ambulacral groove is found along the middle of each ambulacral area, and the groove is bordered by row or tube feet. These in turn usually protected by moving spines. A large radial nerve can be seen in the center of each ambulacral groove between the rows of tube feet. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Feeding. So the feeding of sea star is they feed on mollusks by pulling shells apart and extending stomach outside the mouth into the bivalve. The bivalve is digested within its cells, and the sea stars then wait the so next slide. Next slide, please. So the reproduction, they can reproduce sexually by releasing sperm and egg, can reproduce by regenerating. So they can also reproduce by asexually because if they are cut, they can regenerate their body as long as they have the 1/5 of the central disc. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next is the sea stars. Next slide. Slide. Next is the class of Ophiroidea. It is a brittle star, or this includes the brittle stars. The distinct central disease with a long tube arm, lack sucker, moved by serpentine motion of their arms. They have a very fragile arms and they may easily break. And they live under, or they live in a very dark side, or they live in very dark places in the oceans. Next slide, please. Next reporter.
Hello? Okay. Class Echinoidea. Echinoidea, which means hedgehog form or characterized by hedgehog form. It is quite similar characteristic of a hedgehog, which has spiky body. This includes sea urchins and sand dollars. Lock arms but possess tube feet. Echinoidea has no arms, but it can move by means of the tube feet or through their spines, which are moved by small muscles. Many species of urchins possess poisonous spines used for defense. One of the common characteristics of Echinoidea is its spike and it's around its body for defense, but its spine is also used to brood their young until it reaches its adult form, such as pinsel urchins. Next slide. Echinoideans. There are, pakibalik sa kanyat, back sa Echinoideans. Two categories of Echinoidea, the regular and the irregular. Regular has long spines and nearly spherical symmetry, and one of its example are sea urchins. While on the other hand, the irregulars has short spines and bilateral symmetry. One of its examples are sand dollars. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Class Holothoroidea include sea cucumbers. Class Holothoroidea is remarkably resemblance to vegetables, from the word Holothoroidea, which means sea cucumber form, are elongated along oral anal axis. Compared to other echinoderms, Holothorinian are greatly elongated on the oral aboral axis. It has cucumber shape and no arms, so its movement is through their locomotor tube feet, which distributed equally on their 5 ambulacral area. and some are all over the body. Lack spines and have reduced endoskeleton. Endoskeleton is much reduced on Holothroidea, which makes this animal soft-bodied, unlike sea urchins, which has compact and spiky body. Do possess tube feet and water vascular. Aside from movement, tube feet on Holothurians is also used for its gas exchange. Its water vascular provides hydraulic pressure to the tentacles and tube feet, allowing them to move. Next slide. Sea cucumber. Sea cucumber has one unique mode of defense, where when irritated or subjected to unfavorable conditions, it casts out a part of their viscera by a strong muscular contraction that may rupture the body wall and avert its content through the anus and expelled in the direction of an enemy. These white tubules become long and sticky after expulsion and contains toxins. Next slide. Class Crinoidea. Class Crinoidea, ancient class of animals. It is ancient because it lived a million years on ocean waters. Crinoidea, which means lily form or characterized by lily form. Now, include sea lilies, filter feeders with arms radiating from mouth. Crinoids has these 5 arms branched with more arms on its center. And on its center is where you can find the mouth. Food particles touching the podia are tossed into umbilical grooves and carried tangled in mucus by strong ciliary currents toward mouth, particularly falling on interumbilical areas are carried by cilia first toward mouth and then outward and finally drop off the edge, thus keeping the oral disc clean. Most are sessile, but some can move. Crinoids differ from other echinoderms by being sessile or being attached during substantial part of their lives. But some crinoids, such as feeder stars, can undergo metamorphosis, and after several months, they detach and become free-moving. Next slide. Next, okay. What we can see in the picture is an example of crinoids. Crinoids is very different from what it was on ancient times. Modern crinoids stalks rarely exceed 60 centimeter, but fossils were as much 20 centimeter long. Next slide. And lastly, the class Concentricyclodia. Disc-shaped animals and less than 1 centimeter diameter. And one of its examples are sea daisies. Recently described class of echinoderms. Concentricyclodia were discovered in over 100-meter deep on New Zealand and are the most recently described class of echinoderms, which was discovered in 1986, and only 2 species are known so far. No digestive tract, shallow like stomach and intestine or anus. It has no digestive tract, but its oral surface is covered by membranous velum, by which it apparently absorbs nutrients. And that's our topic for today. Thank you for listening.